be interrupted, and there does need to be a disturbance in the force. And I think that that's starting to occur somewhat out of entrepreneurship and maybe frustration. And Flip said it earlier in the introduction, government's not going to bail us out of this. Nothing against government, but government's not the role for everybody. Nonprofit's not the role for everybody. There can be something in between that we can turn to. Monica's a researcher. She's trying to bring ideas to us, systems to us, and programs to us so we can help ourselves. Now, we've invited some very disruptive people because they're really good at what they do, and we want to learn about them and how they do that. So some systems may get disrupted, but the idea is where to find that fit, where to collaborate, and really where to make this work. And one of the questions from the audience today is, get examples, successful social enterprises in small communities that maybe we could compare to here in Merced.
I'm going to think about this one. You guys ready?
It's a community play, doesn't matter.
Well, again, the case study that we'll talk about will give you a little bit more background on the structure, but we started our process or our project in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which, the county has about 600,000 people. When we tried to adapt the model to some of the counties around us, like Grand Haven, Michigan has got 35,000 people, Holland, Michigan has maybe 45,000, 50,000 people. We were able to accomplish it. We had to adapt the process. We had to take a little bit different look, but it had to be localized to the assets within each of those communities, but also the specific needs of the partners. So again, you don't have this cookie cutter approach where you say, okay, this process will work in every community. There's a framework that we use, but it has been very successful where we've again have 7 employers across sectors, healthcare, long-term care, manufacturing, all working together on some common issues. They were able to affect their retention rates where they had high turnover and stuff like that to achieve a 98% retention of people that are coming out of welfare. And so that is a dynamic change that even those small communities could implement just because they got the right people around the table to design what the solution would look like. From the employer side back to the system as opposed to always creating a program and trying to sell it to the employers as a consumer of the program.
Go to Feisty next.
Okay, go to Feisty. I think that the kind of social enterprise that I'm interested in, which has to do with food preparation and food services, can be implemented in any size community. Because those are 2 growth industries, just overall. In Arizona, which has completely tanked economically over the last few years, one of the few growth industries is food services. People go out to eat, period, whether they're eating fast food or they're eating fancy food. So I would say that, yes, I gave the example of Fair Start Seattle, which is like the god of food social enterprises in the United States, but I think it's entirely possible to do that, in a community like Merced.
Not to take too much away from Steve's presentation next, but I think what Steve is going to show you in this case, I think this is true of James too. James is an incredible example of private-public partnerships around how we really address getting jobs and workforce development issues, and that's really important given our unemployment rates here in Merced County. But Steve's model, what he's going to be sharing about what he's been doing in Northeast Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, I think is the third, is because he's working with rural communities and areas around local food systems and agricultural issues with communities that have very, very similar numbers in terms of childhood poverty, obesity issues, similar to Merced. And so I would want to draw your attention on how the work that he's been doing in his case study around how do you bring individuals together in community when there isn't a lot of financing, there isn't a lot of money out there, where if you look at the indicators that the So, in that model, it's some very good examples of how you get people to come together, organize as a community to develop small kind of businesses all around kind of local food production. And what are the impacts, for example, if you just take a small portion, like 10% of what is becoming global food production, which we are great here in Merced County in terms of the value that we can bring here, what that means in terms of local jobs. And I think he'll be able to share those numbers with you, that if we just localize to some extent what we do here as a community in our economy and close out those systems, how powerful they can be in just creating jobs here and value here within the community.